So welcome everybody to the Operations Committee meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education. Today is Thursday, October 7th, 2021. And myself and Mr. Yusuf as members are here this evening along with staff, the superintendent and Steve Stilfen, Doug Sherwood, as well as our group to keep us in line is Henry and Greg.
Right.
So starting off, we have the meeting minutes from August 5th. Do I have a motion, Mr. Yusuf?
So moved.
Okay.
Well
Any adjustments to the meeting minutes, errors or omissions that you can find?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for August 5th, please indicate. Okay. That passes unanimous with all those present. And moving to the superintendent, the first item on the agenda is the food service status report.
We're going to postpone that item.
Okay.
We weren't sure if Jane was going to be able to join us. Her father passed away today. As a matter of fact, she had been with him, for the last few days, and he passed away today. So she is obviously not
sorry to
with
hear
us.
that.
So we will push this to our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. So update on FY 19 to 22 CIP action plan. Are you going to kick that off, Superintendent?
Yep. So what we're doing is, as you know, this is a big priority of the committee to track the backlog of the previous year projects. So that's what we're going to do first. And then the next item on the agenda is begin to talk about our plans for the FY23 CIP. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve and Doug, thank them for the tremendous amount of work that they've done. So we'll start with the update on the backlog projects. So I don't know, Steve or Doug, who's doing this, but
do we have anything to share to the screen that we could do?
Yep.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Greg, do I have the ability to share?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, okay, all right. And Greg, I think we're good now. So if you want to scoot out, you can. And Henry, same there. Although, obviously you're both welcome to hang out with us. But if you've got other more fun things to do, I can't imagine what that could be. But feel free to leave.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'll make you host.
Okay, awesome. So, Doug, how about if I just share, I share and do you want me to do just the October update, or do you want to do the October update and the August one side by side?
Just the October, and I'll rephrase, where we had some success and where we haven't had as much success since the August meeting.
Good luck.
And I just, like to remind everyone that we used the LaValle Bresinger 2017 as our compass to map a direction here, and it does just that as a compass. And what Doug is going to run you through is actually the map of the terrain that we're navigating through. So as we initiate, plan, and execute these projects, each have a category that we've extracted from the 217 maintenance and review plan to correlate and capitalize on efficiencies by grouping these pieces of the terrain, so to speak, to move us forward. So as we go through this, it should become clear to stakeholders that we're taking a methodology here to reduce the backlog in a systematic way. And of course, there's always constraints to projects as we group them, and can be impacted by any number of things, but primarily now it's logistics and also the supply chain. And getting on people's schedules. So Mr. Sherwood is a master at navigating this terrain, and he'll walk us through this.
And the
So
way
as we
we group these is in projects, right? So we're going to start with this first project, which is the ADA. Doug, is that what you want to? So what I've got up on the screen is the right stuff?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Can everybody
Good evening,
see my screen okay?
The format and the substance to a certain degree, the titles and the dollar values are consistent from our last update back in August, but I wanted to reflect with you on changes since August. Probably the most significant as it applies to the first group of ADA, with the exception of the Deering project, which is a locally funded project. All of the ADA projects that were submitted through the Department of Education as part of the State Revolving Renovation Fund are design complete. Our only stumbling block right now is a few permit questions back from the State Fire Marshal's office. We aren't pushing those too hard because we're also waiting on some ourselves for the bigger picture projects. But most cases, they're awaiting the city purchasing action going out to contract. So don't see any significant issues. And we did note at our last meeting in August that we had asked the Department of Education for an extension to next summer. That particular extension to August 31st, it should say 2022, was approved. And we are anxious to get all these projects moving. The top project, the accessibility at Lincoln, we were right on the throes of reviewing the project with Sue Ellen before she left. So we need to reopen the door with Robin and the team at Lincoln to see what they think about the alternatives we're looking at for the entrance philosophies of ADA accessibility to Lincoln Middle School. But we have two design options. We're ready to show them. We just need to get in the door now that we're into the school year, and some of the more significant challenges behind us. We'll probably see that opportunity next week or so.
When is the extension to the
August 31st, 2022? Primarily to be somewhere in the neighborhood of being substantially complete, but certainly underway in all cases.
That too?
Okay, go on, Doug.
So I just want to see if there are any questions before we go on down to priority number 2, the fire safety issues.
I would just
Hearing none.
Along, and then if you have any questions, just informally raise your hand, and I'll speak up as well.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug.
The second group is where I probably had the most disappointment. I was very encouraged to hear from the city that Colby Engineering had applied as part of their annual RFP for providing architect engineering services to the city. Subsequent to our meeting last time, I discovered that though Colby responded to that RFP and made a proposal, they unfortunately refused to sign the standard contract. So we couldn't go direct contract with them. So we'll be issuing an RFP or an RFQ, I should say, for this work early next week.
Doug,
hopefully keeping it on track for next summer.
About the contract, you said, isn't that not a standard contract? And had they not seen that before? And what was the issue with it?
They thought they wanted to make some amendments, and the amendments were not acceptable to the city.
Okay.
Under the context that there were some issues related to limited liability, also the tenure of the pricing, things that may or may not be a concern when we send out the RFP, but we hope to get other contenders when we go out with the RFP anyway. So,
are all of the projects going to go as one RFP?
Yes.
And when do you think the RFP is going out?
Well, I'm hoping to issue it early next week. I was planning to finish the actual document tomorrow. If I don't, I'll do it this weekend, so we can actually get it out into the press early next week.
Go
Are we
ahead.
ready to move on to the HVAC project?
Good.
I think so, Doug.
Group 3, the HVAC projects. Happy to report since our last meeting, the 2 Deering projects have been completed. Both the main office and in the area of the gym on the addition part at Deering High School. We added ionizers to both of those projects, so they have the same capability as other systems in the Portland Public Schools that we installed last year. And the city is now engaging the process of the other 3 projects, the Talbot chiller, the Lincoln rooftop, and the Portland High rooftop units that were part of the 2017 facility assessment that Steve referred to earlier as high priorities to be done. So they're in some form of actionable state, though they have not started. They are engaging the process. They've already reached out to us on the city side to get things going.
Because those are being done by city HVAC.
By the city. Yes.
So there's no RFP involved. There's nothing. It's just.
They'll do their own RFP unless they feel that one of the current subscribers or contracted agents are acceptable and want them to do the work. I know they do a lot with Triple Point and some of the other HVAC contractors locally, and it may be they've already earmarked that. We just haven't been advised yet.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Doug.
And engineering is done on these, or there's no engineering that needs to be done? What's the story with that?
Right.
The engineering is spec to replacement as original equipment that's there. If there's modifications to cribbing or things like that, it would be addendum to it. But there's no whole scale engineering like we had to do with the Reiki stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the next group of projects for the building envelope projects. The first one is the 2019 Portland High roof engineering. We do have a proposal from Allied. We don't have a contract yet. Since it's CIP, it has to be issued through the city. We're working with Karen and the staff there to make that happen. They don't see any issue for getting a quick assessment and at least a phasing plan ready for us so that when we're further down in the actual FY13 CIP process, FY23 CIP process, we'll have a better number than the 1.8 million we're currently carrying.
Oh, we were traveling in time, Doug.
Yeah.
Backwards in time.
It was a good year.
Yeah.
Sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No problem. I get you. Those would be good years for my first 10 years here. 1.8 would be the whole year program if it was lucky. Most cases it was $1 million. The next group is another tough spot for me. We weren't able to connect last month with the folks from Tomasetti, but we have a new appointment set up for the crew coming from Boston next Thursday. They hope to turn around a proposal within a week and still think that they can meet the summer 2022 install target by being ready to design and contract late winter.
So that's all the way down to so it's Paths, Deering, Portland, and more.
More correct.
Windows.
Obviously we have some experience more recently with Deering and Portland on the windows that were recently replaced through rich exteriors, and that will provide some good information for expediting that work, and that's why they feel a little bit more comfortable about moving forward. More might be a little bit more of a challenge. It's a fairly non-traditional cal wall system. They're not a traditional window system, and we might be looking at something a little bit different than what's there now. But at the same time, these are all parts of projects that are multi-phase that we'll be talking about when we take a closer look at the FY23 that are kind of in the shovel ready first phase, then there's a second, possibly a third phase, but we can all be ready to go with them because they're, I won't call them cookie cutters, but they're fairly close to, commonplace, and you just have a certain number of windows, certain type of windows, and you're able to action that fairly quickly because you have all the information available. We still need to get some work done, probably an RFQ on masonry at Talbot. But we are obviously underway with the work at Deering. They're having some struggle getting some materials to do the support for the structure, the concrete being put back. So we're only able to get a little bit of progress each and every day, but they're continuing at it to the extent they can with the weather and availability of materials.
And so I've noticed that, and is that project going to continue through the winter? Are they stopping?
They expect to finish in the next month. They expect to be done with it. There's also an additional piece that we're looking at is gutter work to carry the water off the roof away from the precast that was part of the issue of how it deteriorated over the years. So according to Knowles, and talking to them this morning, Javier and all, is that they're saying 4 weeks now, and they're working a schedule around the school schedule when, for noise and what they're hammering at and so forth. So they have a broken schedule a little bit. So that's what they're saying, 4 weeks will be done.
And the next group, the other, no significant action since our last conversation, other than we still want to continue to move forward on the various phases of the door access controls. And perhaps Steve can talk to this, because I know we spoke with our vendor probably 3 months ago to order some of the materials ahead of time because we knew the supply chain was getting curtailed. Steve, anything update on the door access?
This morning I reviewed the King layout for cameras and door access and with David. So I know they're going to be starting the King project pretty soon, within a week or two. And I'll have to catch up on the other two plans that they put forward. So they have procured the cameras early due to the pandemic and logistics. So I'm pretty solid on King, but we'll follow up on the rest.
Nothing else of significance in this group other than to remind everyone that it's our plan and desire to redo the gym floor at King, similar to what we did at Deering a few years back when we go about our refinishing project next summer. And we certainly still need to meet with Kelly Hassan and the team out at Peaks to kind of put together the data, the fire, and interior renovation that will become one package, hopefully later in the winter, to be advertised for hopefully a summer start.
Any questions, Mr. Youssef, Ms. Thompson?
Just quick question about, so refinishing the project like we did during high school in 2019, are they the same size, the two gym floors, or are they different?
The gym floors at
No.
King Middle School, yeah.
King Middle School is a much smaller gymnasium than the Deering. It's basically just a little bit more than a middle school size court with very short, I think maybe 3 feet all the way around boundaries. Whereas the Deering has 1 full court and 2 side courts, as well as potential to have 4 volleyball competitions at the same time. So it's a very significantly different gym layout and purpose. They also have significant bleachers at Deering High School, and I think we took out the bleachers at King when we did some work related to ADA back there a couple of years ago and put in a lift at their area where the bleachers used to be.
And one of the major differences of King's gym is that it has a sort of like a cellar under it. And
Yes.
they had heating equipment underneath there that had been leaking and putting water and moisture up under the floor. So we're going to take care of that aspect as well. So things will be dry. It'll be a good floor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I think we should move on to the proposed capital improvement plan for next year. And just, to remind everyone that we will be, continuing to update you on these projects, probably not for, a little while now, but, I think that probably in the early spring, we'll do another update just to see what progress has been made in that time frame. I'm sorry, I have some very excited dogs around me, and I'm not exactly sure why.
You need to go for a walk.
Apparently, they think something's happening. I don't know what it is, but so are we ready to move on to the CIP then? I think
Yes.
we lost Miss Thompson. I don't know.
Yes, she will be right back. So
Okay, all right. I'll go ahead and find the documents for that so that we can. What should I project, Doug? Should I do the staff recommended, or it's the others?
Yeah, I would do the staff recommended.
Yeah.
yes, there you are.
So this is
By background, I think for Mr. Youssef, I want to make sure that you understand that this is what we are thinking we would like to bring forward to the full board, and then, with the board's approval, to the city council for additional capital improvement projects in FY23. So this is what we are, what we're beginning to look at. So this is what our team has pulled together as the proposal. We had talked the last time that we updated on the backlog of projects, the ones that we just looked at now, that we wanted to try to connect our request to projects that are already underway. So those that you looked at in the previous agenda item, so that we wouldn't have another set of projects, but rather these could just fold into those 4 different projects that we presented an update on. So, this is what we're thinking. This is, by no means like what we are, either going to submit, or, if we submit it, what we're going to get. That process is just beginning. We've not been approached by the city yet to come up with a CIP. At least I haven't, Doug. I don't know if they've reached out to you about it. They obviously have a lot of, transition and work going on over there as well. So things may be moving a little bit slower, but we just thought that we would get ahead of ourselves and try to, to think through what our request might look like. So just an additional piece of context, this is for 4.6 million. I don't want to say never, but we rarely are in that neighborhood. So I think that this is a beginning to think about universe, and then we will need to sort of prioritize what it is that we're going to submit, and then see what how it fits into what the city is planning to bond and so on. Usually, the city has a certain amount that they want to bond that the business manager comes up with based on what is rolling off and what they think is an appropriate amount, and then we get a portion of that. So,
Javier, and the S's are the ones that are the priority. If we had to choose.
Well, I'm going to let my,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
My team here
Okay.
walk us through this, because I don't actually see S's.
Yes, I do believe the context is an important one. You heard me mention earlier in the first presentation that first 10 years I was here, the city put a cap of $10 million on their capital improvement program. We were lucky to get $1 million, maybe $1.5 million. That built up to around $2 million for a short period of time. And early on in Superintendent Botana's time with us, and shortly after we were successfully selling the 2017 assessment, we were able to submit a $4 million package, and had a couple that went that way. And then last year, when we came to the same point or juncture, we found or reported back to you that we weren't in a very good place keeping up with all that new capital, and we had considered actually a pause last year. When we brought that particular proposal to the board, there was we still have things that need to be done. We kept 2 projects from Peaks Island. We added the masonry project for Deering that had become emergency at the time we were going through that process. We also wanted to continue the door access controls, and then in addition to the 3 buses that were in last year's timeline, we added a van for Peaks Island as well. But basically, what you see in front of you now is almost rolling over last year's proposal, the FY22 proposal, with the exception of the additions of the ADA bus at the bottom and the roof project at Portland High, which were both in the original FY23 projection from last year. As I said earlier, I don't think this first year on roofs at Portland High is going to be 1.8. We probably can't do that much work in a summer or an extended summer period. So it will come back out from our consultant at a smaller number. But this particular presentation, as you see it here, was kind of looking at, I call it from back in my old days, and recently Superintendent Botana used the same terminology. These first 3 or 4 are what I call shovel ready. We have window projects that were already recently done at Deering and Portland. We're having a designer set that stuff up for success this summer on that first phase. And, this would just be a quick continuation of that, readily available to set the design out, not have to put any extra effort into making that happen. We still want to keep moving forward with our door access controls. And then since we will have a design and a phase plan for Portland High, all those first 4, again, would be shovel ready. The next group of 4 fit into the vernacular that we've been looking at the last 2 years, and that is the state's Revolving Renovation Fund favorably considers ADA, indoor air quality, and projects of the like, structural roof repair, as their priority 1 requirements, and they rarely ever, in my 20 years here, ever supported anything less than a priority 1. And these next group of 4, the Talbot restrooms and the 3 HVAC units, King, Paz, and more, all fit that particular strain of if that's something we'd still do. The problem for us a lot with the State Revolving Renovation Fund, however, is that they stay on a set schedule that's a little bit ahead of ours. And if you actually have a funded project, they don't consider that as part of their process. So, it's some of those things like right now, the FY22 State Revolving Renovation process applications are due the end of this month. And if you're, wanted something to be in that cycle, you couldn't have it be funded. So if we ended up funding this group, it wouldn't necessarily fit cleanly into their philosophy or into their timeline unless we wanted to, through our conversations tonight or later on in the month, kind of work that in to say, yes, we feel that we're going to commit to those and at least put applications in. And then those applications take some time and review. And obviously we could pull them if we needed to pull them.
Doug, I have a question on that. So would we not want to parallel do the applications, and then we could pull from this if the city, obviously we know that the city's not going to probably fund 4.6. So should we not wait and go ahead and apply?
Again, it's going to be a function of the value of money.
The value of money, I'm sorry?
No, I just would like to say, interject here that I think that's what we would recommend, is to parallel track with the SRRF and leave them on the CIP list and see what the outcome is for approval on the SRRF for those projects that Doug just outlined, the state references as the priorities. These would fit ADA, single-use bathrooms, rooftops, air quality, pandemic. It probably would be funded, I would hope, but that's how we would group them.
So we are in a place where we can get those applications done? You have the manpower to do that?
We can get the applications done. We need to remind everyone the process that before it actually goes to the state, and the application deadline is, in fact, the end of this month, the board would have to act, and the superintendent and the board chair would have to sign the paperwork.
So if need be, Javier, you're muted, but if need be, we could call a meeting. We're meeting on the 19th.
Yeah, we have a meeting on the 19th.
Correct.
So is that what this is news. So is that what you want us to do?
Well, I don't want us to miss an opportunity from the state. So I would ask, I guess, that if we're going to do parallel, yes, that we get the board's approval and let them know that nothing is obviously guaranteed, that we're going to present this. Because I don't think we can pass anything up, any opportunity up.
I agree. I was actually asking Doug.
Oh. Sorry.
Is that what you're saying, Doug and Steve, that you want this on the board agenda on the 19th?
Yes, I would.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have it on the board.
That's the process that is required to file the application, is school board approval, your signature, Harvey, your school board approval. We'll work the application ready for submittal and put it through with the signature on from the 19th forward.
I think Yusuf had a question. Yusuf, go ahead.
No, I was saying I agree with you.
Okay.
To have the board agenda on there.
Okay.
So what is going into that? Is it the Talbot, so those projects in the middle, Talbot, the 3 HVAC units?
Yes.
Correct. And we may also take a look at Portland High, depending on how the phasing is done. One section of the Portland High project will involve structural reinforcement. The question will be what's that percentage? And that's how the state normally weighs it. And it might not be enough.
And so
when will we know?
We'll know that before the meeting on the 19th.
Doug, can you talk a little bit about back to the phase 1 roof replacement at Portland High?
Yeah, that 1.8 was the number we've been holding from the 2017 facility assessment. That was the number they anticipated at that particular time. If we did all the work within the first 5 years, that would be the total for all 5 roof sections. We're anticipating that number is probably going to be more than that. We're certainly not going to be getting it all done in probably the next 5 anyway. So we're just looking at what would that first phase be and what is the worst section of the roof. Mm-hmm. And our preliminary thought was somewhere between 750 and 800,000 will probably be the number for that phase 1. It'll probably end up being 3 phases of work.
Okay. And we're at a point where we're okay. We're not going to have, I know it was a construction issue before when the roof collapsed, but we're not in that state of disrepair, are we?
No, we have some we have some issues on the actual, roof itself that we've been patching and keeping up with, but we have no issues. The issues back in 20 plus years ago were actually structural.
Right.
And over the third floor basically of each face, and probably the worst case would be where the science labs are now on the back wing, the upper steps. But structurally, from that support level, ceiling and down, we're in good shape, and the roof only has some minor issues in specific locations.
Okay, thank you very much. And are you going to talk? I'm sorry, and you probably haven't gotten there yet. I don't want to jump ahead. When you talk about the electric concerns, can you elaborate on that when you get there? Thank you.
Okay, so what I understand from this is we are going to, there's still things that we're talking about, but we're looking to put those projects into the revolving renovation fund. And when do we find out about the revolving renovation fund?
Just a second, let me pull up the document. They are looking at doing their review between, after Thanksgiving and through to the new year, and generating a priority list by the middle of January 2022.
Okay.
So the timing's good for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd issue their certificates in February.
And we have a number of HVAC projects in the backlog. Will we be able to get these projects done?
How do you mean done?
Well, I mean, the problem that we run into with a state renovation funding is that there's a time limit. We can't carry it for 5 years like we've done with some of the other projects.
HVAC, I think it'll be a lot shorter, Javier, where there's not a lot of programmatic consideration. It's pretty much replacement, updated equipment, more efficient equipment. So that process is much shorter for that type of work. It'd be similar to what we did at Deering this past summer in time frame.
And the renovation of single-use bathrooms, $332,000.
What we have at Talbot is a series of very small compartmentalized restrooms, and it would be making them all accessible within the building. And that means taking space from other areas of the building. So it is a fairly expensive undertaking if we decide to continue to pursue it. We looked at, in the current design of projects that we're looking at Talbot, perhaps leaving most of those, or a good majority of those restrooms, and creating in appropriately generally accessible locations ADA bathrooms out of spaces that aren't as formally used. And we're hoping that plan might be successful, but this was the next highest priority on our ADA list. But we were trying to see if we could kind of solve part of it, if not all of it, in this other project that we're currently working with Scott Simons on. But we haven't finalized that yet to get a comfort level that everybody says, yes, that's accessible to this student, that student. But we try to do 4 different ADA accessible restrooms, each end of the 2 wings, if you will, and then 2 in the center area. But it hasn't gone to contract yet, so we'll see. But that was, like I said, the next project on the ADA list. It may drop. I just make one last comment from my perspective on the staff recommendation, and it's primarily for Board Member Youssef, and that is that there's a series of information to the right of the dollar values on this particular slide FA stands for the facility assessment. That particular assessment targeted opportunities down the road from 2017 to when the work should be done. That's what those year groups are. Condition is a specific terminology used in the assessment. Life cycle is that, is it obsolete, means they need to be replaced, and that was the issue for the restrooms at Talbot.
Can you stop for 1 second? I'm sorry. And the condition level, can you say, is there a scale? Can you just explain that a little bit?
What we have is on the second page of the document that it's not on the screen right now. It actually gives the definitions.
Okay, great.
So if you're looking at a condition level 0, like the restrooms are for Talbot, it means they are failed and virtually non-functional. We're still using them. In other cases, like the boilers at Lincoln, it says 1, and that's poor and anticipate failure imminent. And then you see the life cycle, and then the general priorities, whether it's a short-term or long-term priority. And again, those are defined in that second sheet that's now up on the screen. So I just want to make sure everybody saw that that's contextually how we put this program together originally back in 2018, and then been building since then.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. That was really good to understand.
Doug, can you do the electric concerns? Can you talk about that? What is CI?
Yeah, we have it on the island, and it's not atypical of other locations.
What's the electric concerns?
It's an issue of the age of the equipment and its general exposure, and it's not atypical of situations on any of the islands out in Casco Bay. So it's just a question of providing appropriate protection or as appropriate new equipment to upgrade the system. We did have, and I think you may have remembered, Sarah, one of my 10 years and trips out to CMP, they were concerned about EMF emanating from the power lines to the school and had some concerns at one of the houses there. So it's just basically an equipment upgrade, again, an end of useful life, verging on, as you see, obsolete. So it's just a question of, it's time, let's get it. But has it been that way probably for 5 years, 10 years? More than likely, yes. Fortunately, nothing has happened. That's the flip side of a lot of the issues that have to do with safety. We just need to address it as soon as we can address it, and probably do it in consistent with some other improvements on the island at the same time.
Thank you. So I have a question, just for Batana. So the boiler stuff that I see, the feed tank, pumps and controls and replace boilers. Can you, and I know, again, I brought this up many times over the years, that we've had to pay for boilers from the school board contingency fund many, many moons ago. Do we have any kind of buffer like that anymore?
So,
if something should go?
I mean, let me just, again, a little bit of context. I obviously wasn't here when you used the contingency fund. I think you can see that the cost of replacing the boilers is significantly more than what you've ever had in the contingency fund. So, you could.
Oh, no, I do mean the 537, yeah.
Yeah, you could potentially use that for something like a feed tank or, things along those lines that fail. But, not enough to do a replacement of a boiler. If a boiler failed, that would be, completely different. We'd fix it instead of replacing it. And the department budget has, a significant amount of money in it for, HVAC maintenance and repairs and for other maintenance and repairs. So that's the first buffer for all of those things. That's, what these guys use to do all of the maintenance work that is happening that is not a part of CIP and things along those lines. But do we have $737,000 sitting around if, we needed to replace a boiler? That's a categorical, unless Steve has some money that he's hiding, a categorical no.
Okay, that's not a bake sale, that's for sure.
And to amplify what Javier is saying, from the 17th survey to now, there's been substantial maintenance on these boilers at Lincoln, from real tight regulation to the boiler water condition, chemicals in the water, so forth, so on. Pumps replaced, belts replaced, valving and piping, relief valves. So the boilers are at their end of useful life,
Right.
from years of
Neglect.
Not
neglect. I'm sorry, that's the wrong word.
Improper chemicals being added to the boiler to produce the protection that the steel in the boiler needs from corrosion. So, I mean, they're multiple years old, and there are so many more efficient boilers we can replace with. So, but they're operating under their pressures and conditions in a much better maintained state in the last few years.
Thank you.
The other important note I want to make on this particular slide, I mentioned that, we had the facility assessment done in 2017. And those years are based from that timeline. So when we're now talking about FY23, we're now actually in that 6 to 10 year group. So anything you see in 1 to 5, we've already behind.
Time flies.
Exactly.
I wonder if we updated that with current construction costs, what the $320 million would be today. Obviously, we've peeled off bits and pieces and some fairly significant pieces with the renovations of the buildings for our future schools, but I'm sure we're still up in the $300 million range.
Yeah.
Oh, at minimum. Scary to think about that, yeah.
Okay, so to summarize this, I think the middle projects there, everything from the roof replacement to the HVAC are things that we're targeting to put into the state renovation, revolving fund. And that will be a board agenda item for authorizing us to submit the application for those. Obviously, if we got that or whatever we get from that would come off of this list. And then the remainder is what we're thinking. And I think I just want to underscore the way that we're approaching this is trying to not make new projects that we can't keep up with, but really tying into existing projects. So you see the window replacements, the door access controls, those are things that we're already in the process of doing, and that we can just fold those in. I'm not sure the boilers, I don't remember seeing boilers in any of our other stuff. So those are the ones that are new to the project, right?
Yes.
Mr. Youssef, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that's all we had for you today. So,
A lot of good information.
Yeah. We'll have the state revolving renovation fund topic on the agenda. We're going to proceed with this. I don't hear any sort of concerns from the board in terms of, these seem to be what about this project or things along those lines. So I think that we're going to proceed assuming that this is what we're going to be entering discussions with the city about. And obviously, we haven't been asked yet, but when we are, this is what we'll bring to the table.
Well, thank you for preparing it ahead of time, and we're ready to rock and roll when they do ask us. So thank you all for all of your hard work. And Doug, thanks for keeping the rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling list.
The master.
Doug can't retire. Sorry, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Youssef, are you okay for adjournment?
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you for the tremendous amount of work, and we really appreciate your-
I think you said thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You're a little muffled. That's okay.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good
Good
evening.
night.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.